Good afternoon. Welcome to the March Sports Pavilion meeting. I am Director Vines. I'm going to call today's meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We are -1 of our committee members with an excused absence. And we'll move to 2.01, the minutes from February's meeting. If there are no corrections, additions, or changes, they will stand as written. Oh, okay. Denise, we're good to go? Yep. All right. So with that, we'll move into 3.01 with the bowling manager's report with Barry Hardesty.
Okay, thank you. February 24 versus February 23. In league play, we were up $18,294. Open play, we were down $185. And the miscellaneous revenue, we were down $327. Total bowling revenue, we were up $17,782. Food and beverage, we were up $4,055. Non-bowling revenue, we were down $2,121. Grand total bowling, we were up $19,716. The games bowled, we were up 1,694 lines. And the Lizard Acres Pub was up $2,217. So overall, it looked pretty good.
Great, thanks, Barry. Committee, any questions for Barry regarding his report? Okay. Paul.
Barry, on the non-bowling revenue, other than locker rental, what does that include?
We bowling, any specials that aren't categorized that we're doing, some of the tournaments we put in there, because it's really not categorized where we have buttons for it. So that's the bulk of it. The bulk of it is non-resident card sold, and then the Wii bowling and the lockers. That's the biggest.
Thanks, Barry.
Okay.
Any other questions for Barry? No. Great, thank you, Barry. With that, we'll move on to 3.02 with the fiscal year 2022. No, with January's 2024 financial review with our CFO, Cliff Swan. Thanks, Cliff. Sorry, I was reading something that didn't seem quite right to me. Thanks.
No worries. Thank you, Director Vines. Good afternoon, everyone. Get right at it. I know we got a lot to cover in this meeting, so I'll get right into this. So these are the January year-to-date financials. As you heard from Mr. Hardesty, February was a good month for us, and you'll see some of the numbers he talked about will cover some of the numbers that I have here. So specifically, for the month through January year-to-date, we were down $18,000 in revenue. Well, you just heard Mr. Hardesty say in February, we're up $18,000. So we covered that $18,000 in the month of February, which is good. But through January, we were down year over year $18,000. We've talked about that with the rent not coming in from Memos, with the extended closure in September. We were kind of chasing it a little bit. We made up that ground in February, so that's good news. Looking at the expenses, still running favorable on expenses, mostly in payroll, and a lot of that was just simply because of the closures that we had. So with the offset of the savings on expense from to budget, and then the reduction in revenue, we're still favorable $14,000 year to date, with a cash inflow currently of $44,000. Taking a look compared to prior year, running ahead of prior year, even though we're down in bowling lines, that's due to the increased rates that we put in the budget from last year. So that's what's driving that increase. So even though down in bowling year over year, still up in revenue when you compare the 2 years. And then also impacted in there the beer increase that we put in last year, pitchers and single beers. So on the expense side, running 5,000 overall unfavorable. Most of that is in it's 16,000 in wages and benefits, which was budgeted for, but we are having a positive variance due to the bowling pins that we didn't have to purchase this year, at least through January. Taking a look at the year-over-year operating cash inflow, running favorable by 6,000 compared to prior year. Here you can see the revenue, where it's coming from. Again, we've talked about this. We get less outside member bowling, but league bowling revenue's up, and some of that controlled network play is up, offsetting some of that. But overall, still up in revenue, 2.4% increase. So here's, like we talked about, the decrease in bowling lines year over year, roughly 8,200 lines. Sounds like we made up 1,600 in February, so that's good, of that 8,100. And the average per line is up 20 cents, which we know because we budgeted an increase. And that concludes my January year-to-date presentation.
Thank you, Cliff. I have one question, and you may or may not know the answer off the top of your head. Probably not a big deal, but I know that while Memos has been shut down, so we're losing that rent, and we're working diligently on that. Hopefully we hear good news today, fingers crossed. The question that I have is, so prior to her actually shutting her doors, was she current in her rent? Rent was all paid up through that, or?
I think there might have been a 1 month. So I think she was current through December.
Okay.
And then I think she notified us in January that, yeah.
Okay, great. That was it for me. Anybody else have any questions for Cliff? Nope. Audience, any questions for our CFO? Nope. And we don't have any online questions at the moment, so. Nope. Okay, great. Thanks,
We'll
Cliff.
talk budget later.
Thank you. You probably were wishing we put those line items next to each other. So now we'll go into 4.01, the proposed, the recommendation for Lizard Acres with Carl Wilhelm. Welcome, Carl.
That one, Greg. Yep. Thank you, committee. Thank you, Chairperson Vines. Glad to be here, and this is our 7th month of discussions on the 24-25 fiscal year proposed capital improvement projects. I just have a couple of changes to announce, and as I mention each and every month, this is a running tally of month to month so that all committees see all changes and ultimately the full budget that's being proposed this year. For FY24-25. In our TAN category of new items to the budget, there are no changes. $626,674 in projects. Moving on to the reserve study items portion of our budget in blue. Our one of two changes. We had a reduction in cost due to the accounting department and golf working together on reducing landscape vehicles by one more vehicle, finding an efficiency, and that was reduced from $90,989 down to $56,903 for the budget. And a new item has been added, a discussion on admin IT technology. We have servers throughout our rec centers. There are 3 servers that would, in the past, have been purchased if needed through our allowances. And since these are known 3 servers that are coming up, we felt that it would be in our best discretion just to put them on the capital line item instead of impacting allowances. So 3 servers for the TEG point of sale system need to be replaced, $29,172 being added to the budget. Moving over to golf and green for reserve study items. All the information that Todd has been sharing positively, if you go back and look at any of the slides, he's always mentioned Lake Shoreline Hardscape number 3 at Trail Ridge, but we recognized that we did not have that in our budget. So we added it this month to an impact of $48,000 being added to the budget. Other than that, in reserve study items, both blue and green, there are no other changes. And then finally, there are no changes in the final category of allowances, $420,000 for allowances. I'll give a quick update on the one particular line item that involves this committee, which is the Lizard Acres Bar Room renovation and equipment. I have no changes to update or give. We're just continuing to move forward to see how this budget process is going. And somewhere in the next month or so, I will be reaching back out to the committee once I have a little better feel on how the budget process is going, on what our next steps of work would be, and kind of locking this in for a scheduled date for next year if approved. So,
Great. Thank you, Carl. So we'll just do a real quick recap with this committee. I know we voted at our last, or came to consensus at our last meeting to go ahead and move forward with the Lizard Acres renovation. And I just want to make sure that we're still on the same page. And if everybody, I just need consensus from everybody so that we make sure, because this is the part of, with the governing board, this is the part where we now call on all of the standing committees to ask for any pullouts. And so at the meeting next week, I think it is, right? The 21st, that the chairs will have to let the board know pullouts. So just to reaffirm, and I'm just going to ask everybody individually if we're still on board to recommend and move that forward to the governing board. So we'll start with Paul, and we'll just go down the line.
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Denise? Yes. Bob?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Denise, you have, good to go? So it's unanimous. We will move that forward to the governing board with a unanimous recommendation. And since that's the only one we have on that is done. Thanks, Carl.
welcome.
Okay, so with that, we'll move into 402 with the proposed operations budget. And Cliff and Carl are just going to swap places.
Okay, thank you again. All right. So we talked a little bit about the budget the last meeting, and we're going to share some details of that budget with this committee, and hopefully come away with a recommendation on the proposed fee increases to cover the proposed expense increases. So before we start budgeting, we always look at how we're tracking for the current year. That really sets the baseline for the budget. And with that said, we anticipate the budget to come in $23,000 favorable over the projected to come in $23,000 favorable over the budget based on where we're tracking right now. So with that said, $96,000 projected cash inflow, roughly $97,000 cash inflow this year on roughly $1.1 million in revenue. So some of the notables and assumptions that this budget that we put together is that we would have wages and benefits in specific to the sports pavilion increase of 4%, and that 4% is attributable to a $1 increase in the Arizona minimum wage that we put in the budget, as well as a 3% overall increase for the other non-minimum wage employees in the sports pavilion. So those two, along with the taxes and overtime and workers' comp insurance and make up that 4% of roughly 34,000. And then a couple of repairs and maintenance. We actually are reducing our repairs and maintenance by 16%, and that's due to we had a flooring project this year that we decided to do while the sports pavilion was closed that got damaged when they were bringing in the pallets. So we repaired that floor, which created an expense this year that we're not going to have next year. So that's a notable in the expense category. Now, some of the revenue assumptions to cover the roughly 30,000 in overall expense increase. So looking at 291,000 lines of bowling, which is right in line that we've had for the last couple of years. Actually, this year we're tracking under because of the extended closure in August. But in this budget will be 291,000 lines of bowling, and we anticipate regaining the 6,000 lines that we lost in September this year, which will give us a revenue increase for next year. So that'll result in 18,000, roughly $3 per line, which is what we're kind of running behind year to date now. But we anticipate having an increase in revenue due to making up those lines year over year in the budget. And then if we look at rent, we anticipate collecting the additional rent that we didn't collect when we had the closures and with memos being out. So a 6,000 increase there. And then the bowling rate changes that we put into place or that we're proposing and the holding additional tournaments will generate another 1,000 in revenue. So and then additional food and beverage sales for that additional business goes along with that as well. So overall, if we take a look at our bowling rates, we really like to compare ourselves to Sun City. We feel like they're the same type of bowling alley. We have the same type of customers. That's really who we compare ourselves to when we look at rates. And looking at our rates, they're displayed here. And then looking at Sun City's rates, you can see we're pretty much on par. We're a little bit less for the, we're a little more for the resident rate and a little more for the guest rate. We've got a nice, shiny, brand new bowling alley, though. They don't. So we feel like we're very competitive on the rates. But when we look at the rates, that's what we look at in terms of looking at the competition in the market. So we talked about the additional tournaments. They're listed here. These we're going to put in this year. Some of these will start this year, and this is really just trying to utilize some of the open bowling that we're not getting a lot of action in over the weekends. So and spreading it out and making sure we get plenty of notice out so people know. But that'll generate. This is kind of twofold, right? Because it feeds upon itself, right? So you have the additional revenue from having the tournaments, but you expose yourself to maybe more bowlers. People get more interested. Maybe they come and practice a little bit more. So that's what we're anticipating that this will draw and create some extra interest and some extra coin. So with those assumptions I talked about on the revenue and the expense side, we anticipate the total revenues to be 31,000 over this year, so roughly 1,130,000, and the total expenses to decrease, fortunately, because of the to increase by 30,000, but still creating a favorable amount of 1% increase year over year in this budget of 98,000 cash inflow. Something to be proud of for the Sports Pavilion. Sports Pavilion actually turns a profit in terms of operating, which is always great because it helps the rest to keep the dues down for the rest of the community. And that concludes my budget presentation.
That's great. Thank you, Cliff. First off, I really like the idea of the tournaments, so thank you. I really like that. That's great. I think it's going to like you said, twofold, help us out in multiple ways. So any comments from the committee on Cliff's report? Paul, I see you shaking your head. Did you have any comments?
Barry, on the budget, mentioned 8 tournaments over the next year. There's 8 on this page, but actually next year starts in July, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I was comparing budget to budget, so we didn't budget those.
I got you.
Yep.
Got you. My question is, I'll call them the outsider tournaments. If they're internal tournaments, would they bump these?
You mean a last-minute bump?
No, I'm just saying, for example, Gary, what are we calling the tournament that, in April?
Oh, the Stats Trio?
Yes,
That's April 20th.
that's April 28th. For example, that is a local, limited to primarily people that bowl in Sun City West. It's an internal tournament. If there were more of those type of tournaments, would the CBE tournaments, which are predominantly outside people, be bumped out? If we're staying with one a month?
If we give enough notice, yes, they would be bumped. But if you would come to me like 3 weeks before it's scheduled, then no, it wouldn't be bumped because it wouldn't be fair. Because, you know, they were coming over, spending money in our facility, you know, we want to treat them halfway decent. So as long as I have notice, you know, enough notice that they could change the date or we could change the date, you know. And that's what we did with Gary. We just went to the calendar and worked around everything, and there was no issue at all.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hmm.
For Cliff or Barry on this? Okay. And bowling rates. Remind me, there's a few bowling rates that we need to approve, but we don't.
Yes, so those are here. They were the next agenda item, the actual rates. But so we have a new rate that we're instating for a non-card holding public bowlers who come in. So they haven't paid for the discount, and they're a non-league bowler. They haven't paid for the card. So we're putting a rate in for that to be our highest rate at $4.50. Excuse me. And then a couple other changes here: the 3-game charter club rate, increasing that 50 cents from $6.50 to $7, and then on the 3-game Wii rate, increasing that from $2.50 to $3. And then I believe that was it, or was there one more?
And
Can
I'm
you put that
sorry,
bottom?
Cliff, I think I jumped a line item on you.
Oh.
Did I not? I think that was Barry's and I jumped a
Oh,
line
it's
item. I'm
it's
sorry.
okay, but
Is that
this is
okay?
these are baked into the budget, so
Okay.
this is they go hand in hand.
Okay,
yeah.
so what we'll do, that was my fault. I think it threw me because you had mentioned bowling rates
Yeah.
here. And so if there are no more questions for Cliff, we'll go ahead and move on to 403, and Barry can present the bowling rate sheet. Yep. Thanks, Barry.
I don't have my sheet. Thank you. For open play, we stayed the same at $3. Resident guest, we went up to $4 from $3.75. And the non-resident league bowler with card, $4 per game. And that's okay. And we feel we're obligated to, since they're buying a $30 card, that they would pay the regular rate. Now, if there's a non-resident, non-league bowler, they would pay $4.50 a game, which is 50 cents above the norm. The 3-game league play, we're holding at $9. League play after $8. And the 3-game league summer is $8. And the 3-game charter club, but they said we went up to $7. and the 3-game Wii bowling went up to $3. The controlled neighborhood fees stayed the same, $30 for the year, $15 for half a year. Rental shoes stayed the same at $2, and the annual locker fees stayed the same at $20 for a resident and $25 for non. That's the proposal.
Thank you, Barry. Any questions from the committee? Bob?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Do we know how many lines non-resident, non-league bowlers have in a year, approximately?
No, we don't, because we don't break it out that way, but what I can tell you is that we have a non-resident category, and that represents 26% of our open play.
Okay, I guess the reason I asked was I don't see, maybe I'm just not seeing it, but when people come into open bowl, I don't see people checking resident cards or matriculation cards or any of that kind of stuff. They just kind of say they're here to bowl, and are you a resident or not? And I mean, we got several different categories here, and I'm not sure that the folks collecting the money are really checking those categories. And I could be wrong, Barry. I'm just saying what I observed.
With that new rate that we're installing, that'll be a must.
Yes.
That's the only way we're gonna know if it's legit or not. So, yeah, we'll put much more emphasis on that than we have.
Okay, I see that as a potential revenue generator if there's a significant number of people availing themselves to that, because that rate's about half of what you're getting over at Uptown or some of the other areas.
You're right.
I have a question or two.
Paul?
One thing I didn't notice on here, Barry, was the rates that were going to be charged for tournaments. I don't see a specific breakout for that. And then my question is there going to be a rate, what I call again, for internal tournaments, the residents and people that have bowling cards, as opposed to those that are non-residents that bowl in a tournament?
Well, we some tournaments are on a bid basis. So we're bidding against, the whole city, especially for the bowlerettes and a couple city tournaments and stuff like that. So we bid whatever we feel we can get away with. Now, do we offer some less to get them? Yes. But it all depends on the tournament, the size of the tournament, and if we think it's worthwhile, to drop the price a little bit. So, but it's on a basis that we determine what we're going to charge. It changes. Different tournaments get charged different rates. Like CBE gets a discount because he is willing to host a lot of tournaments there. They pay when they're done, never had any problems. So, we give them a little break to keep them.
Second question is, under open play discount, I do not see representation of the past year discounts and if there is going to be a discount in this upcoming year.
Yes, it's not on there. It'll be the same it is this year. It's 10 cents for one league, and multi-leagues, it's 15 cents.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay. I'm audience questions. If you have a question, can you please come to the mic? I'm sorry. Those are the rules. So you have to come to the mic and give us your name and your rec card number, please. I'm sorry. I don't make the rules. I just have to follow them. Yes, please. Give us your name and your rec card number, and then I'm sorry, you really do have to sign the sheet too. That's Carl's job to enforce that.
Okay, I'll do that. I forgot my question.
Name and rec card number.
Oh, Shirley Ann.
Oh, and rec card number?
I don't know. I have to check this over there. 138248, something like that.
Thank you, Shirley.
Shirley Ann.
Shirley Ann.
I don't hear anything about the pool hall.
Okay. I'm sorry?
I don't hear anything about the pool hall. I should have brought my pad. We bring in money. We have guests. We have tournaments. We have expenses for replacing the tabletops. We buy beer and wine and soda and all that stuff, but I assume Barry is just rolling that into bowling and nothing else.
I'm probably like the beverages are getting rolled into food and beverage,
Yeah, as far as expenses go, we have probably roughly $10,000 in expenses in the pool room every year. We just covered 5 tables, and that was $3,800. So we do have a lot of expenses. As far as income goes, you guys are in it for free, like other
Residents
activities.
are, but we get guests and we
We don't
have
get a lot.
tournaments.
We don't get a lot of guests. Not a lot. We don't. We get guests, but not a lot. So,
When you compare it to bowling, no, because we're not open to the outside unless they come as a resident's guest, but I don't know, you're just disregarding the pool hall, and I don't know, I thought I'd hear something. Every time I go to Barry about something, he doesn't really even care about the pool hall. How many times have I come to you and asked you about certain things to make sure that we keep the pool hall looking good? And your answer to me all the time is, I'll think about it, and you never get back to me.
Are you just looking for information at this meeting for such as how many guests we had in the previous month?
No, I'm just
or-
wondering why, there's so much put on the bowling. How come we don't hear the expenses of the pool
Shirley,
hall?
when you talk to people that come from the outside and play in that billiard room, every comment is positive. It's the nicest billiard room in the city,
From the
and
outside,
it's free.
from the outside. Of
From the
course it'd be
outside.
positive. We have a beautiful pool hall, right?
Okay, so what's the big complaint?
I'm
We
just
recover the
wondering,
tables. Who damages the tables?
didn't I come to you last time I came to you, there was a hole, and that table had been redone less than a week and a half ago, and there was already a hole on there. And I asked you, could we make it mandatory that we use these little felt things?
Right.
And your
what the-
answer was what?
Pardon me?
Your answer was what?
I said I'd look into it. Have you noticed the tables have those little things on them?
Well, you didn't do that. Guy did that.
Who do you think got Guy to do that?
I think Guy did it.
My guess would be at Barry's instruction, I would
I'll
guess.
talk to Guy. Okay.
But I'm just curious, I was just asking if you were looking like for us to report more information
I would
regarding
like it.
the billiard room. So,
Who's breaking them off? The billiard players. We've replaced them.
Right. And I've spoken to those men on that table. It's not mandatory. I don't have to do that. So
No,
I
but-
go to Barry and said, make it mandatory. We should all be using this to save our tables, to save expenses.
Okay.
thank you. Any other comments from the audience? All right, so back to my original question on the bowling rates. Cliff, you might have to refresh my memory. We have to make a recommendation on the bowling rates to the governing board, but I'm trying to remember by what month the governing board has to do this. And I want to say maybe it's April for the May meeting. And because we don't have Karen here today, she was just couldn't make the meeting. Do you want the recommendation today, or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say is, in terms of expenses, the budgeted expenses are currently what we're anticipating and proposing. So the rates really are just about how do we make up, to look at the rates, making sure we're competitive, obviously, but also how do we make up the additional costs associated with that. So I guess what I would say is, if the rates that are proposed here are good today, I would say go ahead and make that recommendation, and then when the governing board decides to take it up or anything moving forward, we have a conversation with Karen about that. But I don't know about the deadline But
Right.
if we're ready to go today, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from doing it today.
That's my thought, because if we get it to the governing board and any of the directors have any issue and they want to make any changes, it has to come back down, so.
I don't believe so.
I don't know, so.
I don't think it
okay.
has to come back down.
All right, we'll,
We would certainly report back down.
right,
There's no then re-recommendation. Yeah.
the ongoing, battle, so, okay.
Well, let's be
let's
clear
go
about
ahead.
that. That's a great question.
Right.
So when the rates, when the board reviews any rates, whether it comes from, if it's from the sports pavilion, if it's from golf, if it's member dues, APFs, any of the other rates that we propose throughout the budgeting cycle, at the end of the day, the governing board has votes on those. So their decision on the rates is final. They just like to hear from the committees and hear what the thoughts are there, and engage with them to get so they can make more informed decisions, not just based on their own beliefs, but coming from the committees that actually kind of live in that space. So,
Okay, so, thanks.
you're welcome.
We will go ahead, and if there's no more discussion on the bowling rate increases, I will start with Gary and ask for consensus to move the bowling rates forward to the governing board.
Yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Joe?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes, with the inclusion of the open play discount that
It's,
we discussed.
it's just a yes or a no. Thank you. So we will move this forward to the governing board. I will give Karen the recommendations, and thank you, committee. I guess I have to have my mic on to talk. With that, we'll move into 404, Blizzard Acres update. And I think, Carl, we talked about maybe 404 and 405 kind of go
I think we
together.
covered that already, yep.
Right, yeah, so we'll just move on to 405 for the RFP regarding Memo's Bistro replacement with Carl.
Again, thank you, committee. It's my privilege to be able to share some of the information that we gathered in the RFP going out for a restaurateur. So I have some things I'm going to read off to you today. December 1st, 2023, the general manager's official request for proposal was publicly sent out in search of an interested restaurateur to be considered for the Sports Pavilion Cafe's contract renewal ending August 2024. The RFP due date for submission was set for February 1st, 2024. We sent out a request for proposals, Recreation Centers of Sun City West Incorporated, Sports Pavilion Concessions, Casual Dining and Pub Invitation, and then all the legal jargon that goes into an RFP. And it was very detailed. Multiple successful local vendors and the existing cafe vendor were directly invited to submit their proposals. During the interim RFP timeline, the existing cafe vendor, owner Tricia Rivas of Memo's Cafe, made notice approximately January 1st, 2024, she would be closing Memo's Cafe immediately. On February 15th, 2024, after much discussion from the Sports Pavilion Committee, a final draft of the restaurant survey was finalized and sent out to the community for survey results relevant to the community's desire for restaurant vendor support and food interests. The survey results are due March 15th, 2024, and will be reviewed and shared with the vendors considered from the RFP request. We have received RFP responses. On February 2nd, 2024, the general manager invited key staff and Sports Pavilion Committee members, volunteers, to partake in the interview process with 3 RFP responding vendor candidates. Friday, February 16, 2024, we interviewed a chef, Peter Salazar, a current restaurant owner of Happy Trails Community Restaurant. On Tuesday, February 20th, the group interviewed Peter Aviles, a current owner of Puerto Rican Pete's Restaurant in Surprise. And on Tuesday, February 20th in the afternoon, we interviewed a Robert Villalpando, who is a concept restaurant professional. Both Peter Salazar and Peter Aviles followed the request for proposals instructions to submit, while Robert Villalpando responded late by phone, contact only, but he was an interested party. So as a courtesy, he was provided the same interview and questions in person by the interviewing panel led by Bill Schwinn. The interviewing panel consisted of Bill, the general manager, Barry Hardesty, the sports pavilion manager, Cliff Swan, the CFO, Terry West, accounting manager, Russ Boston, facilities maintenance manager, myself, Carl Wilhelm, facilities ops manager, Robert Edge, the sports pavilion committee member, and Joe Hoyer, sports pavilion committee member. The panel took multiple notes on each responding candidate. The collection of these detailed notes from questions asked equally of each vendor were discussed after all interviews were completed, and a unanimous decision was made to make recommendation to select Peter Aviles, owner of Puerto Rican Pete's. Peter Aviles provided very positive responses to all of our questions asked. He also provided a very detailed history of his experience, his business plan, supportive documents to the RFP, and the assurance toward survey assumptions. Being able to provide the services and food necessary of the survey results once reviewed. Peter Aviles has followed up on a secondary review set of questions from the panel of interviewers, also with very favorable response to being able to make recommendation as the qualified vendor to support the Sports Pavilion Cafe. Some of those questions were difficult to ask, but Peter Aviles of Puerto Rican Pete's has a current business name, and we thought it might be best to neutralize that for our community. And his response was that Peter Aviles would incorporate as Pete's Cafe for the rec centers. So that was a positive response in the questions that we asked. He also gave a presentation on decor and some marketing ideas inside the cafe. He responded very positively to that. He's very proud of his heritage, and his heritage flag is still red, white, and blue, so we're pretty comfortable with a red, white, and blue theme if that's the end result. I have to say that we were very thorough on asking the questions that came up from the last Sports Pavilion committee topics on the subject that steered the final survey questionnaire that went out. And when I'm done here, if Mr. Hoyer and Mr. Edge have any further comments to make, I think Peter Aviles was able to confidently cover what results we believe that we'll get from the survey. There were some specific desires to have a snack bar. He answered that with a great confidence. There was a specific line item of, hey, can you provide pizza? He was confident in saying, no, I cannot. But he was willing to work with us on maybe an alternate, maybe a less formal version of a pizza opportunity. But to everything else that we had asked, hot dogs, nachos, pretzels, things like that, he was very positive. A couple of the restaurateurs provided us samples, either by coming into the Sports Pavilion early and getting the community to get a little taste of their flavor and style. Mr. Aviles actually brought us samples that day of his more food from his heritage, or his flavor from his current business. I'll let anybody else speak to that. I thought it was quite delicious, and it has an opportunity to have a lot of neutral flavors, meaning like he has empanadas that could be made like a pizza roll. all different kinds of flavors. So I think we all grew in our little cultural opportunity to get a different taste. And he would serve us in the traditional restaurateur, eggs, bacon, breakfast, lunch opportunities. And again, I think we all left with a very positive takeaway to his food opportunities for us. So it was unanimously agreed, after much discussion, by all the members of the interviewing panel to recommend Peter Reviles as the next restaurateur to fill the currently closed Sports Pavilion Cafe. My ask of you today is to make a recommendation to the governing board, and if it's positive, that we can get the process moving forward for a contract. Any questions?
Any questions for Carl? I'll take comments after we talk.
Yeah.
Bob?
Carl did an excellent job of summarizing the interview discussions. Just to add a little bit to it, not much. Peter Reviles provided sample food, which was delicious. A couple different types of food. What kind of impressed me was he provided these box lunches, if you will, and they had rice and beans and then some type of meat, a bunch of different types, beef, chicken, pork, etc. And he said that these boxes would be available in the restaurant for purchase as a sit down in the restaurant, or you could carry them out to the bowling alley or the lounge. And he also anticipates a very good carry-out business on those. And the bright news on that was they were $5 a box. Wow. Very, very reasonable. Also, I think you called them empanadas. He had a tray full of those, and we sampled those. He quoted prices like $3 per empanada, which could be a meal by itself, and 2 for $5, $7 for 3. I don't know. Anyway, the point I'm making is his pricing, his approach to the pricing was not to try to get rich on a few items, but actually do some volume sales. He also offered runners to the lanes and over to the Lizard Acres pub in case people wanted to order something and they couldn't stand around and wait for it. And he also is going to open the window for the snack bar area. A lot of people don't know there's a window there that instead of walking into the restaurant, you could just walk up to that window and order. And he'll have a service person there during restaurant hours, but also if the restaurant closes before the bowlers are finished bowling, he would keep that section open so that after hours eats in the bowling alley or the Lizard Acres pub could be available.
Thank you for sharing that, Bob.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Ron?
I just have one. In reading this and listening, what do you see planning on as actual hours? Do we have any idea what his hours are going to be of operation?
Yep, we did discuss that. So same opening operational hours as we currently have, 7 a.m. And the committees that interviewed hoped till 9 p.m. We thought a portion of the committee, the staff's portion, thought maybe that was slightly unrealistic to keep them in a profitable, having all that staff for an open restaurant. But he did positively share that he felt like he could cover us till 9 p.m. from the snack bar perspective, which is the late bowler or the late Lizard Acres visitor that maybe wants a snack.
Great. That sounds, it all sounds so positive. I had a chance to look at the package that was submitted, and like Bob alluded to, the prices look excellent, and he has a very wide variety of food to be offered, which I think is fabulous.
Can I give another update?
Yep, please.
So as the restaurant exists today, our current vendor, Memos, is fully vacated the premise, and they did that very tastefully and appropriately. And if you were to peek your head through the closed doors, it looks like nothing has changed, and that is because a negotiation has been made that can be completed if this goes forward, where the new vendor would purchase the Memo's equipment inside. So they are prepared to make that opportunity happen.
Well, that's great. That's really good news.
One other caveat, Carl, in the notes here, we're talking about the survey results being available March 15th. All of the handouts and publications said that the survey runs until March 20th.
Then that's an error on my part. I apologize.
I had asked at a previous meeting if perhaps we could get some early results on that survey so that at least we could have an idea of what is popular and maybe what might be moving forward. I know that Peter said that everything we were talking about he was able to do, so it didn't sound like a big deal.
I'll have to investigate on whether I can actually speed that process up. I don't know that that would be appropriate based on you sharing that light. My error.
Right. And so far, I haven't heard anything from Katie yet on the,
I imagine the surveys are as filled out as they're going to get by this
Right.
point in time. So that's my assumption.
I would think so too, but we'll have to check with Katie on that.
Oh, yes. With a positive recommendation from this group, if that's the case. Next week, we have a governing board meeting on the 21st. Our general manager is retiring on the 22nd. So I'm not trying to pressure, but in the interest of a lot of interim conversations, not necessarily having a new general manager at this moment, respectfully, it would be great if we could figure out how to possibly sign a contract next week. So I'm just asking the question, but ultimately, Director Vines, that would be your process.
Thank you, Colin. You stole the words right out of my mouth. That was my next sentence to the committee. So thank you for opening that door for me. That's perfect. So that is, before we actually come to consensus, I'm going to ask for audience comments on this particular topic. If there are none. Oh, it looks like our GM is coming to the mic.
Bill Schwind, I don't have an owner member number, but I am still your GM for another week. Just a quick comment, and I think Carl touched on it. When talking with Pete Avelis, he's really a tremendous guy. Really stepped forward and really won the show over when it came to the RFP and trying to bring a restaurant forward as far as casual dining. I just want to highlight the fact that you're going to see a little bit of makeover change in that facility, some of that stained glass decorations coming down. Pete is a 30-year military veteran from the United States Marines, very active. And so you're going to see a lot of plaques up on the wall when it comes to various military type services, be it Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard. So there's going to be a little bit of a veterans theme to it. Again, Carl touched on the red, white, and blue. Yes, one of Pete's parents is from Puerto Rico, but taught him how to cook, apparently, but he does a really good job. And so what we'd really like to do, we do have a draft contract in place. We have met with Pete, and we asked him to please take a look at it and have his attorney take a look at it so we can kind of help facilitate this if this does get moved forward, just to kind of facilitate this going. Because there is a little bit of delay getting permits and what from Maricopa County and getting all that changed over. And so I just want to let you know that if this does go forward, we are kind of at the horse's gate. You know, if you let us go, we'll run with this and try to facilitate this as best we can. And then Pete did reach out if this contract does get approved and in the time that it takes maybe to do a little remodeling and that type of thing. Also, if maybe just want to let you know that I think if the governing board would allow, he'd be more than happy to park one of his food trucks out there to help service the community in the interim as far as opening up the casino, not the casino, the cafe before. Okay, put a casino on the list. But he would love to do that just so people get a taste of his food and kind of get to see what's coming. But I think you'll be very impressed.
Thank you, Bill. So I might have missed it if you said it. I love that idea, and hopefully, Carl, that we're going to be able to allow something like that with his truck to be out there and maybe service the people. But did he give us a ballpark idea of how long the process would take? I know that we're at the mercy of Maricopa County with permits and whatnot, but 30, 60, 90?
I'm going to say a safe, fair time with the idea that all the restaurant equipment is in there. Within a 60-day time period, if we don't lose a RCSCW governing board month in decision-making. You get where I'm going? So with the interest of a yes by the governing board of some sort, and then I believe a 60-day window sounds pretty accurate, so.
Super, thank you. I figure that's probably going to be one of the most asked questions if we.
And his
move
biggest
this
thing would be decor, prepping the room,
Okay.
because like I said, if he knows that he's going forward as our restaurateur, he's prepared to finalize
Great,
the purchase of equipment.
super. So in the interest of not, of making Carl's life a lot easier going forward, and I'd like to ask the committee, let's make a recommendation to, we do have an online question, so Terry, do you want to read that?
1398, oops. 139839, Scott Oblander. How many years' experience in the restaurant business does a select restaurant vendor have? And what would be the length of the contract?
Carl, I believe you said he's been around, had 30 years business, 30 years in the restaurant business? Isn't that what you said, Bill?
Pardon?
Oh,
8 years.
8 years. I don't know where I heard
Yep.
30 years.
Yeah.
And then,
30
30-year
30-year
Marine,
rate.
that's where I heard that number.
8
And
years.
then we're looking for a 3-year contract, and that's why it has to come to the governing board
That is correct.
for 3 years. So,
And I don't think there's a restaurateur that would accept a 1 year.
a 1 year, no. And so just for the residents here and might be watching us on YouTube, the GM only has the authority to sign a 1-year contract, which is why we have to bring this to the governing board for a 3-year contract. And so in the interest of moving this forward and getting the ball rolling, as Carl and his team did an outstanding job with this, and I would like to make the recommendation that we go ahead and move this forward to the governing board for their March 21st meeting for Puerto Rican Pete to be able to move into the Memo's space with the 3-year contract. We'll ignore that. And, okay, Peter Aviles. Do you want me to state that later on he will incorporate as Pete's Cafe? Okay, with that name change. So with that, if Terry, Paul, will start with you. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Yes.
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 Thank you, committee. That will move forward to the governing board for the March 21st meeting with a unanimous approval. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Flip my, with that, we will move into committee comments. Gary?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. No comment. Denise? Any comments?
Not right now.
Okay. Do you want me to come back to you or no?
No, because I don't know if I want to ask this.
Okay. Terry? Joe? Ron?
Yes. I do, even though we've recommended Pete. I was just wondering if you can tell me, I don't see anything, and I'm not looking for the number, but I assume that we're going to get at least the same amount of rent, if not more?
$2,400 a month.
Okay, thank you.
No more comments.
Thank you. I have one thing that I just want to ask. I want to kind of bring forward if I can. The other day, I was having lunch with a friend, and this is just an observation I made, and I just want to throw it out there to everybody. This might be something that everybody can think about, look at. Oh, Carl's coming back to the mic, so I'll put my thoughts on hold.
That was a very good question, so we want to make sure that we're accurate. So $2,400 a month, 3% increase per year, and for the very first time, the restaurateur will pay for all of the gas utility bill. And the restaurant is primarily gas. Any further questions?
Thank you, Carl. Any more questions for Carl while he's at the mic?
Okay, what I was gonna ask before, and I didn't know if I should or not. I don't understand the need of changing the name to Pete's Cafe from Puerto Rican Pete's, because people know the name Puerto Rican Pete's.
It was the purpose of having a committee formed for an interviewing panel, and consensus was that these were the questions that came about, we asked, and hence a committee like this. So we had the committee for interviewing, and that was a question that came up, and actually the restaurateur had no objection and understood, that he would probably like to have a more neutral name to the pavilion.
Okay, only because, like I said, I didn't know where it was. I've heard of Puerto Rican Pete's before.
Yep.
And thinking that if you had the same name, it may bring in more revenue.
Yeah.
I think he knows that his following will most likely patronize him here. I'd be shocked, frankly, if some of his initial advertising doesn't say formerly, Puerto Rican Pete's, to get that ball further rolling. But I can tell you from having spoken to a lot of our residents who did patronize his restaurant in Surprise, that they know who he is and they're looking forward to it. So when he said he had no problem making that change towards more neutrality, if that's the right way to phrase that, that was a win-win as far as we were concerned.
Thank you.
The other thing sort of related to that is Puerto Rican Pete's current restaurant or his previous offerings were of a certain ethnic nature. This restaurant is going to be a little bit different than that. He's going to offer a much broader menu. He said he was going to offer a special each week, maybe prime rib, maybe whatever, lasagna one week. It's not going to be strictly the old Puerto Rican Pete fare, in addition to all the snack bar and other stuff that he's going to offer that wouldn't have been offered on his truck or his other restaurant. So he agreed that Pete's Cafe was probably more appropriate.
Okay, so basically he's rebranding himself. Okay, thank you.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Is he going to sell beer and wine? And who has the liquor license?
The Sports Pavilion holds that, and he is not interested in the beer, liquor, or wine business.
So if you want that, you go out the bowling alley.
He is not interested in that.
So I think to piggyback onto Terry's question, the one question I had is, if somebody goes in with a beverage that they may have bought, an adult beverage, is that going to be acceptable? Still? Okay,
Yep,
because
it's
I know
with- it's
Trish
within
allowed that.
The permit that we
Confines.
hold for the sports pavilion, is that
Great.
correct, Barry?
So that'll still be acceptable, great, thank you. And the last question I had, since we're back on this topic, will you have for us by next month's meeting, I know you'll probably have to talk to Casey and work on that regarding the answers to the food truck while he's in the process of renovation, his catering truck?
I would say I would defer to your next Thursday's meeting as a
Oh,
governing board.
I was giving you
Give us
till,
some direction.
I was giving you till our next month's meeting, but if you want to.
I mean, we're open to supporting a food truck, I believe, so.
Okay, so I mean, I was giving you until the sports pav meeting next month, but if you think you might have the answer at the governing board meeting, that's fine too. Yeah, that's better yet. So, okay.
I said it from giving us some direction, if that's.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll talk to Casey then. and-
We need a contract first. You get where I'm going?
Right,
So-
yeah, got it.
Okay.
Got it, I got that.
Okay.
So, and I think we have a question, an audience question, and I think, does it pertain to Puerto Rican Pete's then? Okay, great, since we're back on this topic. Thank you. Name and rec card number, please.
Janice Reynolds, 119950. I appreciate Bob's comment about the purpose of changing the name. If I were to see Puerto Rican Pete, I don't like that kind of food, and I think I have other friends the same way. They probably wouldn't even go in and try it. So I appreciate the name being changed to a more neutral name. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so I think that, have we now taken care of all the questions for, I know I'm going to go to that one. If we're taking care of all the questions for the restaurant, we had a question come in that came in, well, it arrived a few minutes late for the bowling, regarding the bowling, so I'm going to toss it to you, Barry, when I read it, but it was from Mary Gaynette, 133113. As a resident, there aren't many opportunities for open bowling. Can you please make a handful of lanes available for residents only, 3 to 4 days per week? Put residents first, please. I think our open bowling we have a great policy for open bowling, and you're still publishing those, the open rates, lanes, right?
Yeah, we're open till 9, but the problem is we just have so many ligs that take up the lanes. It's not the open play that's taking the lanes, it's the ligs that are taking the lanes. So for us to enable for lanes to be open all the time for open play, we'd have to reduce the size of some of the ligs. And I can't see where that would be an advantage, because we'd lose a lot of revenue. You know, because the open play, it's not bad, but it's not that great because people are used to not being able to get a lane. So I don't see where we can just dictate to a league and say, okay, from now on, you're going to get 4 lanes less or whatever. I feel for those people, but that's why we recommend that they come in Saturday or Sunday, and we only host the tournament once a month. So there's only going to be 1 day a month, on a weekend that you won't be able to get a lane.
Right. Are you still making available, I know last season we talked about it, you had the sheets at the desk with open play, available hours and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're still doing
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
And is that online too, available online? that they
It
can see
was.
that?
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
It's in the monthly rec center news
okay.
publication. And the weekends are available. There are also several days during the week where there's a couple hours here and there that are available for open bowling on that sheet.
Perfect. Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So with that, I'm going to go back to something that I saw that I just wondered if this was something that was doable or something we could just look into possibly. But I was having lunch with a girlfriend the other day, and she bowls here. She bowls at Sun City, and she had a mug, and it was something she had gotten for bowling a game or over her average or something she did at Sun City, and it had her name on it and everything. And I thought that was really cool. And I asked her if we offered anything like that. And she said, to her knowledge, that we didn't. And so I wanted to ask you, Barry, if we ever thought about doing anything like that. And I had asked Gary Zarek when I ran into him if we did anything, and he said no. And I asked him he said he had a couple of those pieces from Sun City. So I asked him to bring them, but I was just curious if we'd ever thought about offering something like that. It's a very minimal cost to.
In the 9-pin no-tap leagues, if they bowl a 300, we give them a towel with our name and a 300 thing on it, which is really popular. We take their picture, we put it up on a wall. As far as the regular 300s and stuff, no. And if we gave out, like somebody had bowled above their average, a cup every, the cost would be astronomical. So, with over 2,000 league bowlers, it would cost quite a bit of money, and plus a lot of labor to track it. So we just feel it's not needed. It's just one expense we don't need. So if you want to do something like that, I'd have to see how much I think would cost. But you're looking probably at $5, $6, $7 a cup, do 2 cups with their name on it.
I thought it would be something worth looking into. I did speak to the gal over in Sun City that handles it, and she said that they, average that they throw in about $2,000 a year for it, which is, money that they collect. And so I just was curious if it was, those are pretty nice pieces, but I was just curious if it was something that we ever thought of. And I was just curious what the committee's thoughts were on it. So I wanted to ask. Denise?
Isn't that something that could be handled league to league? If a league decided they wanted to do it, they could do that, correct?
Lisa, for our sanctioned leagues, there are already a number of awards available through the USBC, and they are for pins over average, for high games, high series, etc. And so to have a local trinket might be nice, but I don't want one.
Yeah, you're talking about pins and stuff.
I'm talking about their plaques. You can get I have a 300 ring.
Right.
I'm sure everybody on the panel here that bowls has a 300 ring. I mean, those type of awards that are significant.
No, we don't, but I've paid for a couple of them.
Even the local Phoenix chapter of the USBC gives out, Gary knows more about it than I do. He passes them out every week for high awards. I'll let Gary comment on it.
The 300 rings and the 800 rings that you get are one per lifetime anymore. There used to be many years ago. You could have a whole drawer full, but now it's just one. So these particular things that are sitting in front of me that you told me to bring this is a once a year memento from Sun City. Their bowling fees are $2 per year. And you are a member of the Sun City Bowling Association. And if you shoot an honor score, they give you one of these once a year. Or my wife had 705. They gave her this Sun City Bowling Association water bottle. So it's something that maybe we should look into. I volunteer to take some time and investigate if anybody wanted that to happen and see how cumbersome it might be to do something along those lines, or we don't have to do anything. But I would be more than happy to take a look at it and review some costs and time. And it is going to be some man hours, but they don't really give them for very many awards. They have 150 pins over average award. I think they have 100 pin over average award. They have an 11 strikes, actual strikes in a row award, and then a 300 and an 800. And you get those only one per bowling season, you're not giving them out consistently, if you have 300s, you don't get 3 cups, you get 1 for your first. So if someone would like me to look into it, I would be more than happy to analyze some costs and things like that. It would be up to the committee.
Thank you, Gary. Any thoughts from this end of the table? What's that, Joe?
Gary can run with it.
Oh.
Thanks for offering.
My only thoughts are, like Bob mentioned, the 3 of us are pretty avid bowlers and carry large averages compared to most people.
Right.
Those kind of things that you're talking about would be what I would say the recreational bowler, not the people like us that bowl in tournaments and scratch leagues and so on.
And I did like, in talking to this gal that, it's only 1 per season that you're eligible for. It's not something you get continually. And Ron, any thoughts on this? Are you in the high average thing?
Makes his own cups.
Yeah.
I'll put your name on it.
You get it, but, so, yeah. All right, I'm just curious, whether or not we give Gary direction to bring us more information, or Joe says yes, and Ron?
If there's a bowling league, a men's bowling league or women's bowling league here, and that group, that league, if their officers or whatever want to do something like that, let them run with that. Let
We
them
would
make
have to
that
do it
decision.
for the whole bowling alley, as the bowling alley, because the material, the cups or whatever we go with would have to be purchased.
Yeah, but
that
if
way,
they didn't,
so.
if Barry had nothing to do with that and each league themselves came up with that, why would we have to get involved with it at all? If they want to do it that way, you'd have to find out whether.
Cost effectiveness is what we're looking at.
Yeah, but if we're not going to spend that kind of energy and money to do it, I can't see it.
Yes or no?
No.
Okay, that's all I'm looking for, yes or no. Like, you know what, remind me to separate them, because it's a whole, when I say yes or no and I get this dissertation, and it seems to be that, well. So, thanks, Ron. Okay, perfect. I'm going to go over here. Denise?
Honestly, I think at our age, we all have way too much stuff,
Okay.
so no.
And Bob?
No.
Okay, that takes care of that, thank you. And with that, we have audience comments on anything? And I see heads shaking, no, no, no. So with that, I will let you know our next committee meeting is April 10th, right here, same time, just a different day, and meeting is adjourned.